So many of you know the movie Star Wars, right? Right? You can't help but know it. If you don't, I don't know where you've been, right? I was one of my favorite movies as a kid. There was always this character in the movies, right? It was Yoda. Yoda was that person for sage advice. He was the grand master of, if you will, from a Jedi standpoint. He was the person that provided the information. But here's the thing that I always loved about Yoda. He kept everything simple. He didn't complicate anything. And so my guest today, Walter Holbrook, who actually happens to be the founder of Yoda Retail, one of the things that I love about him is how he keeps everything simple. Business leaders, retail leaders, you guys are making everything so complex. Today's episode, we are going to help you simplify. We are going to help you get past yourself, get past all of these different things that you think are important. And more importantly, how do you keep things simple in order to execute and get the best out of yourself and also your team? All right. So thank you for joining me today on Retail Leadership with Steve Worthy. Let's go ahead and get started.
Welcome to Retail Leadership with Steve Worthy, where we go well beyond the corporate playbook to unpack major opportunities, hidden challenges, and critical issues that senior retail leaders face every day. If you're ready to get the insights you need to elevate the impact you have on your team, increase the profitability of your stores, and level up your retail career, then keep listening, my friend, because I see a lot more success in your future. So let's get started right now.
So Walter, we were speaking offline. You know, one of the first times that we spoke for about 2 hours, and we covered so many different things. And I want to talk about you, your career, the things that you do, sort of, you know, for your clients, the state of retail and leadership, and then I want to get, you know, some of your thoughts around what's next for 2025. Like, what should we expect in retail, because you have a very unique way of looking at things, and very practical and pragmatic, which I think, you know, we try to overcomplicate a lot of things in retail. And I love reading your posts on LinkedIn, because they cut right to the chase and they give you exactly what you need. So before we get into some of this other stuff, could you talk a little bit about, like, you know what you do, and a little bit of your career, and then we'll move into some of these other questions.
Oh, sure. First of all, thank you. I appreciate the opportunity. Everyone loves to talk about themselves, so I'm going to have a ball today. So
I know you will.
We'll see where this goes. But, you know, I celebrated this month 60 years in retail.
Wow.
And someone says, how is that possible? And I started 12 years old. I was a pop bottle boy. And they would bring, in the suburbs of Detroit, they would bring their empty bottles back. And I had a little sheet of paper, and I would give them, if it's 6 empty bottles, they got 12 cents. So I wrote 12 cents down. And then they took it up to the register and made their purchase, and they got 12 cents off. So that was my introduction to retail. It was a small family-owned Sam's Mini Mart. And I started, you know, stacking the coolers and the beer and the wine and all that, everything that you did. And that's where I started, was right on the floor of the convenience store. And I loved it, absolutely loved it. Did that in high school. I eventually joined E.J. Corvette's, which was a discounter in the 60s out of New York. They had a couple stores in Detroit. And I jumped on with them as a stock boy, worked in cameras, eventually became a salesperson. And I got frustrated because the camera manager had gone out sick. And I was doing all the functions of the camera manager, right? At 19. So I went to the store manager, Mr. Rubin, I believe was his name, and I said to Mr. Rubin, I want to be the department head of cameras. Well, young man, that's not possible.
Yeah.
I said, well, I'm doing the job and I'm not getting paid for it. So tell me what is possible. He says, I think I have a job for you in garden.
Mm.
I said, I don't think that's going to work for me.
Yeah.
I'll let you know in a couple of weeks. So I went down to the Kmart, and the Kmart said, we're looking for a camera manager. I said, good, I'm available. So they hired me, I think, at $250 an hour.
Mm.
That was a big time. I was a department head. And I started with Kmart, and I stayed with them for 30 years. And I tell the story all the time that what was your career like that? And I said, well, I went from the stockroom to the boardroom in 30
Yeah.
years.
Yeah.
And it was a blast. I don't know how you can describe it any other way. I mean, they helped me every step of the way.
Mm.
They challenged me. They never gave me too much to do. And after running 2 stores and running a district and running a region, they offered me to be an officer of the company. And, with all the perks that get, I'm just the pop bottle boy from Detroit.
Yeah.
And now I have access to the corporate jet. So it was a whole new world to me.
Yeah.
And I had a blast. There's no other way to put it. I had a blast.
Yeah.
I had 400 stores. I think it was worth about $4 billion in business and sales, and 23,000 associates.
Wow. Yeah, I love that. I love what you just said, but you said stockroom to the boardroom. What were some of the things that, we're gonna get into, what you currently do here in a second. But what were some of the things that you feel like you did really well back then that they recognized in order to like move you? Now, I know you didn't immediately go to the boardroom, but you know how that goes. But you know what I mean. But there are so many different learnings along the way, and I just want you sort of kind of to encapsulate maybe some of the different things that you did really well in order for your career to grow to the level that it has. Because I think there's a lot of value in some of those learnings that you have.
Number one, I think, is just hard work.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? That no one was going to outwork me.
Yeah.
And as I went up the ladder, you look at your competition, they were all better educated than I was.
Mm-hmm.
So I always thank God for the intelligence that he gave me.
Yeah.
That I could compete with this very well-educated group. And I also think that grit and mental toughness had a lot to do with it. Those times when things are at their worst, I could find a way to bust through it. My personality is such that every day is a new beginning.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't get down on myself. I don't let problems absorb me completely or the organization. I push through them, run over them in many cases, however you want to look at it.
Mm-hmm.
But I think hard work, the ability to communicate, those things are as crucial today as they've ever been. We just don't always focus on it. I have 4 things that I always teach about hiring today.
Oh, good.
You're listening to Retail Leadership with Steve Worthy.
1, my God, I want them to have a great work ethic. You gotta want to work hard. If you don't want to work hard, I don't want you. It's that simple. You better have a sense of pride.
Mm.
You know what I mean? You better come in. You better look like you know what a sense of pride is. You've got yourself put together. Number 3 is coachable. Are you coachable? That's something I want to know. Can you follow directions? Do you enjoy that? Do you collaborate? Those are things I want to know. What kind of, how do you interact with a coach? That's really important to me because you're going to get a lot of coaching. We don't expect you to know it all, but we're going to help you move forward. And 4th is social skills, your ability to communicate with others. Do you enjoy people? If you don't enjoy people, if you're a software engineer, this probably isn't for you. But if you like being on the sales floor, you're comfortable when you see someone, hey, how are you today? What's going on? Tell them a little joke, laugh with them, build a relationship, and before you know it, you're selling something. So I think it's simple. We overthink it. We want to test people. We want to do this. I need 5 minutes with someone. Either this is going to work or it's not.
Yeah. Yeah.
Let's move on.
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny. My HR's, partners would always, laugh at me, not in front of the candidates, of course, but like afterwards. They could tell by my body language whether or not I was going to hire that person within the first 5 minutes of the conversation. They knew it. They were like, and sometimes I would literally stop the interview and I'd just be like, okay, you're good. Like, meaning like I'm going to hire you. I think the ones where we just had to get through the questions, they were kind of like, you're not going to be hired by Steve. So I hear what you're saying. So all I need is 5-10 minutes with you, a couple of good questions, and I will know whether or not. I think that's almost a lost art. Nowadays we have to get through the interview guide. We have to get through that process, and everything. So you've pivoted sort of in your career, right? You've sort of left the corporate retail space, if you will, and now you're doing your own thing, and you're working with clients. Could you talk a little bit about that transition and what you're seeing now with working with the actual retailers and not so much just in the capacity that you used to, but what you're doing now?
Yeah, you'll hear me say, I call my company Yoda Retail, which
I love it. I love it. I was waiting for you to say it. I love it. I love it.
It's tongue in cheek, but it does elicit a response from people, which I love. It opens up communication, and that's all it's meant to do. I mean, I'll screw something up in a minute, so don't worry about that. But I love. You'll hear my motto, my tagline is bringing common sense back to retail. And I was with the management team the other day, and the HR person, director of HR, said we needed someone. And the HR person said, well, I'll go online and pull some applications up. And I said, well, what is that supposed to mean? What are you going to gather from that? I said, the other day I was in a Dollar General store and I met Maria. And boy, Maria was phenomenal. Great social skills, organized, running around with her head cut off. The store was overwhelmed. She was overwhelmed. Not her fault. She had everything you would want in a leader. I said, why don't you just go down and hire Maria? Hire Maria. She's already got everything we want. Why are we making this so hard? You're going to go pull some applications. We're all going to look at them. Yeah, that one doesn't. No, we don't even know what we're looking at. Where's the human touch? Where's the common sense? Why are we making this so difficult? Go find Maria. If they don't hire her, I'll find a job for her. It's that simple. Yeah. Common sense. It's not that difficult. The other day I said to HR person, I said, is that young man still on the payroll? And they go, yeah, he's still on the payroll. I said, did he go through his 90 days? She goes, yes. And you made the decision that you want that individual forever.
Yeah.
Correct? That's what you're telling me. You want that individual forever. Is that really what you want? Do you know? What you don't realize is, standing on the sidewalk outside, before I came in, I could just feel it. There was a young lady out there, a go-getter, filled. Her work ethic was unbelievable. Great sense of pride. How do you know she wasn't filling out an application today and we didn't hire her because that gentleman's still on our payroll? So we missed that opportunity.
Yeah.
Where's the common sense? Why are we holding on to that individual? Help him to take his marketing skills somewhere else.
We used to say at Target, we would promote him to guest.
Exactly. And I don't mean to be mean-spirited or flippant, but
no.
not everyone's cut out for this.
No, and you're
And
not,
my
yeah, and you're not being mean. You're not being mean. I think this is what I appreciate about our first conversation, but I appreciate about you as well. It's like, this is not about being mean. This is just the reality of retail, of the space and the industry that we're in, right? I mean, if we don't use common sense, then we are left with the decisions that we make, right? And then we a lot of people start to hem and haw about the decisions that you made, right? You made yourself. They're going
to question you.
Yeah, no. You made this decision, right? And you're upset about your decision. And so I love what you said, right? I think but here's the rub. Is that, and we'll get down to the line in this, but how did they take that? I'm gonna ask that question later. How did they take your pushback? And I hate to use that word, but like your pushback to, like, hold on for a second, like, you left this guy still on your payroll, and also the fact of, like, well, why did you just hire Maria? How do they take some of that common sense perspective that you provide?
To be honest with you, I mean, and up front, they're taken aback because they're given this corporate bullshit line, not common sense, and they're not allowed to speak truth, the power. And you talk about shooting yourself in the foot. That's what we end up doing. We end up hurting the organization because we tolerate the weakest link. And all the other associates are watching us.
Let's start back. You said the biggest thing that you see in leaders today is
they're non-confrontational. It's comfort and convenience versus change forward, moving forward. And you see a lot of this. There's a great article I read not too long ago that the kindest thing you can tell someone is the truth.
Yeah.
That not giving them the truth is you're hurting them. You're not being kind to them.
You're not being kind to them. What's his name? Jim Collins' book, Good to Great, right? He talks about getting the right people on the bus, but also, you know what? We got to get some of these other people who don't deserve to be on this bus off the bus. And it said by doing that, you're actually helping that person out, right? You're actually. I'll give you a quick story, and we'll get back to you. And it's that I was taking my daughter's car to the service place, and I get there and I'm talking to the service manager. And I look at him, I kind of recognize this guy. I don't know where. It is what it is. So I go out and I sit down into the waiting room, and he comes out and he talks to me. He said, "Hey, Mr. Worthy, this is what's going on with your car." Da, 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 da. He said, "Do you remember me?" I said, "Sort of." And he said, "I was a APS or APL, Access Protection Leader in one of your stores, and you came for a store visit." And no one else was there. Leadership had sort of like, you came unannounced, and I was sort of the only leader there. And we walked the store, and you gave me some advice. And you probably gave me some advice that no other probably target leader would have given me. Was like, "Hey, I'm not particularly sure this is what you're called to do," right? Because as we were having a conversation, I sensed that there were other things that he wanted to do outside of access protection. So I gave him some of that advice. It was like, I think this is, possibly maybe not the right opportunity for you. I think within 2 or 3 weeks he left. And then about a year and a half later, here it is. Now he's running an entire, service department, and he's loving it. And so I think part of our job is to be able to sense when maybe it's time for that person to move on, and actually sort of help them through that process and be okay with that. But I don't know if there's necessarily the tolerance for people to do that nowadays.
I think there has to be. There has to be. I mean, we're dragging everything down instead of building everything up.
Mm.
And our job is to build things up.
Yeah.
And the idea of status quo, I've never been a status quo guy, ever.
Yeah.
Every day is an opportunity. And I don't care how good it is. I don't care how great the sales are. We're missing it somewhere. Let's go find out what it is. Is there an end cap that needs to be changed? What is it? Is there a customer we didn't take care of properly? There's just go find the opportunity today and grab it and run with it.
So this status quo, is that what you're seeing with some of the retailers that you work with right now? Is that is it the status quo, or what's sort of the core issue that when you walk into some of these retailers that you work with right now that you're like, this is I see this sort of across the board with them?
A lot of my frustration recently in my store visits, not that I'm advising them,
Right.
that would probably scare them to death, but the dollar store industry, I have not been happy with. I'm a huge Target fan. My wife is a long-term customer, loves them. There's so much that they do right that I love.
Right.
But the day-to-day operations of their stores comes up really short anymore. Their out of stocks are ridiculous. So what causes that? And I always say it starts at the top. It never starts at the bottom. How can you walk in a Target and find an empty end cap? How is that possible? But in almost every Target I go in, I find one. So what's causing that? That someone in that management team isn't uncomfortable with that empty end, that it's not a priority.
Oh, love that.
And I've talked to quite a few ex-Target people, and they tell me that is something new that they're seeing more and more of. That in my day, we were never allowed to do that.
No.
So where's that coming from? Now, a lot of our leaders in the industry are not retailers per se. Target's a perfect example. Cornell has had a phenomenal run. Most of that was earlier. He's a CPG guy, a product development guy.
Came from Pepsi.
And you know what? I tell you what drives me nuts as a retailer is Procter & Gamble's never empty. Never. The low margin items, they're never out of stock of the low margin items. But the seasonal items, Halloween, it took them almost to Halloween to fill it up. Christmas, Walmart had Christmas up the last week of September.
Yep.
I was in Target this morning. It's not full yet. I don't know what they're waiting on, but it's not full. So these self-inflicted issues that are happening in retail, I think is the biggest challenge we are seeing. And in the dollar store industry, the CEO of the $1 store said that the retail environment was very uncomfortable at this time for his customers. And my comment was, if you've ever visited one of your stores, it is uncomfortable for them because of the way you're operating it. So maybe you should take ownership of those associates instead of, I'd like to take the CEO, the CFO, and the COO, and let me see if you can run the store better. And if you can, then good. Otherwise, let's get a new set. What do I care?
Right.
At this stage, it's the only thing I got going for me now, and I don't have that much. So if I hurt someone's feelings, they'll have to get over it quickly.
I don't think you have a problem with that. I don't think you have a problem with that. I don't think. Well, I think that's sort of the core. That's the core issue, right? Is that as a ex-Target person, 100% agree with you, right? Empty end caps, aisles, seasonal. right? Those were unacceptable. Those were unacceptable, standards, that we had. And so I don't see just in that store, but I see it in other retailers as well, where they're okay. They're okay with having these out of stocks and sort of disappointing the overall experience, that you're seeing with a lot of customers that are coming into the building. And I think part of it is that whenever I visited stores or visited markets, I had this two ways of looking at the store. And I looked at it from a non-systemic standpoint, or a systemic standpoint. So some of the non-systemic stuff is, to your point, was that I didn't really necessarily look at the end caps, because I know that all they had to do was go in the back and sort of pull it out, use their gun, drop a batch, and they could fill it up, right? And so 9 times out of 10, they had those end caps filled by the time I left the store, right? So that wasn't a systemic issue. But when I would go in and I would walk the aisles, and I have the gun in my hand and I'm looking, I'm scanning, and I see negative on hands, or I see different things, like those are systemic issues, and no one is really looking at those. Everybody is looking at sort of the glossy stuff. But if we start to peel back the onion a little bit and help these stores deal with some of the systemic issues, out of stocks, their inability to communicate effectively, like what's actually taking place in their store, what's selling in their store, right? I think we have to make sure that we educate and equip our teams to be able to communicate what's taking place. It almost goes back to that you said confrontational, that lack of confrontation, right? I think a lot of leaders now in retail are scared to have that confrontation around something that's wrong in their store, and because they don't want to be seen as the bad person. But guess what? When you or I come to their store, we ended up seeing the results of some of that lack of decision making and that lack of confrontation that sort of needs to take place. That friction that you and I, when we grew up in retail, we were okay with that friction, right? That's what actually got the best out of all of us as well.
Well, it's interesting. This is a great conversation, because when I was running that large region with all those stores, and that at the time, it was a very intense time in big box retailing. You had Walmart, Kmart was the dominant, let's say, in the 80s, but man, you could hear the footsteps of Walmart. Target was just starting to grow. And part of the responsibility as the vice president was I communicated the corporate stance to the stores. This is the direction we're going. And then I also felt a tremendous obligation to take what I was finding in the stores to the corporation.
Oh, I love it. I love it.
And that was, I think, that was the biggest thing I learned in that job, was not to be shy. I can remember having a conversation, and the president of the company was sitting next to me, and I start off on something. And he's kicking me in the leg and pulls me out of the room and says, "You can't do that, Walt. You can't have that conversation." I said, "You got the wrong guy. You picked the wrong guy. Here we are. We're on the verge of going away, and we're worried about someone's feelings? Get over it. We're all VPs or more here. Let's have the conversation, and let's get over it." That's what it's just like these leaders of these. I mean, I'm not worried about what Cornell's making or hurting his feelings. He's a big boy.
Yeah.
He's paid plenty of money.
Yeah.
So I think that's the other thing that I think frustrates me is leadership, corporate leadership, is not taking they're not taking the responsibility of the stores. That store is mine. I used to tell district managers and regional, you go in and you find the bad store, you don't leave. You're there. You help that store manager start treading water again. Whatever you got to do. If it's a week, it's a week. If it's 2 weeks, tell me. Well, I'm going to be here for 2 weeks.
Right.
So I think we've lost some of that, don't you?
No, 100%. It's funny. I did a 2-part podcast episode earlier this year, and it was on one of those taboo topics in retail. It was that friction between home office and stores. And so I called the series "Everything Works at Home Office," because you know how that goes, right? Everything's perfect at home office. The planograms are perfect set. The lighting set, budget is fine, but there is that friction that no one wants to talk about that still exists to this day. And it is, and the 2 parts was around what can stores learn from HQ, but also the second episode was what can HQ learn from stores. And part of that was around the idea of a common language. So to your point earlier around being able to communicate and cast a vision, the corporate vision, but then also to bring it down to the store level, what does the person that's taking 2 buses to work really care about sort of the corporate vision? They care about the fact that I have 40 hours this week. They care about the fact that, I can actually help my mom or my dad out or whatever it may be. And so how do we break sort of that corporate vision down to what I call with them? Like, what's in it for me? So I think we've lost the plot on how to communicate down 2, 3, 4 levels down so that person actually really cares about, like, coming to work, about the company, and then actually able to see themselves, moving up. So it was a really popular, podcast episode because it helped a lot of corporate people understand that, listen to me, when you go into these stores, I gave them some advice. I also gave them some advice around when they go into these stores, part of the strategy that they need to have is that, so if they go into a market is doing something really well. Guess what you guys need to do? You need to share that information, and you need to and with the email in an email, you need to say, you know what? I was in Walter's store, and we had associate that whoever with us, because what that does is that lets the stores know that they've been seen, that they've been heard, that, you know what, Steve isn't just going to actually go up there and drop the ball on this. So I think there's this areas of aspects or of communication and common language that we're completely missing the boat on, and then we need to get back to doing that.
I think those are great points, Steve. Great point. One of the things that I did, your point here, is when I would go to the home office, there were 5 what we called generals, field generals. They were all officers of the company, so they ranked right up with the guys when you got up there. So we spoke for the stores. And one of the things I told corporate was, and you'd have everyone in the room, CEO, president, the chief merchandise officer, everyone would be in the room. And I said, do you ever get the feeling that when you go visit 10 stores, 9 of them are wrong and 1 of them's right? And they would go, yeah. And I said, do you understand why? And they go, no. I said, because our home office, our headquarters is built with outstanding people. All these guys that were outstanding, you promoted them up here. Yeah. And they do an outstanding job of developing outstanding programs for the average Joe to implement.
Yeah.
And the average Joe can't implement it. Why don't we get 9 out of 10 successful and then focus on the 1? Because right now we're beating the crap out of everyone.
Yeah.
What is that getting us?
Yeah.
It's frustrating as hell. I know it's frustrating for you. It doesn't help us. Let's get 9 of them successful, and then we'll say, wow, this is working all of a sudden. Instead of saying 90% of them are wrong. They're not wrong. They're working their tails off.
Well, I had two more sort of questions before we wrap up. When you think about I know we've sort of gone on about, sort of the retail leader, but I want to get a little more like specific. Like when you think about, the current like retail leader, and we just talked a little bit about the retail space. What are some of the things that these retail leaders are have to do differently as we get into this world of AI? We get into this world of, of course, omni-channel, whatever the term that they use. Every week it's something different. How do leaders adapt, and what are some of the things that they need to do differently, right now in order for them to be successful?
I've said it 1,000 times. It's people skills.
Yeah.
I don't care what it is you throw at them. I don't care if it's AI, a new planogram, you're going to do omni-channel, we're going to pick it up the street, pick it up on the sidewalk. I don't care what it is. It's all going to be done by people.
Mm-hmm.
On the technology side, I had a guy call me yesterday. He's selling technology, right? I said, the good news is I don't buy technology. I advise companies. My job's so easy.
Yeah.
Well, what kind of advice do you give companies? I said, I always tell them, if they can't prove to you that it works, it doesn't work.
Come on.
So that's it. And he said, well, what are you saying? I said, I'm telling you, yeah, you can put your technology in. Go ahead and install it. I'm not paying you anything. It better be seamless, efficient,
Mm-hmm.
and effective. And if it's not, I love knowing nothing about technology because I know what the expectations should be.
Mm-hmm.
The same as Mary on the register. I said, I tested, I think it was 35 years ago, I tested for Kmart self-checkouts.
Mm.
How's that gone? 35 years later, we think we may have it worked out.
Yeah. Yeah.
So do I have to wait 35 years for you to get paid? Because if your technology isn't ready, I'm not interested in it.
Yeah.
So that young leader needs to stay focused on people, not technology.
Yeah.
Technology is a process, just like how we bring freight to the store or whatever. It's a process. It's not going to take all your work away. It's not going to solve all your problems. You're going to have as many people problems today as you will tomorrow and the next day. So be a great people person and your job will get easier.
Yeah. I 100% agree with you on that. I often think that a lot of technology is a solution in search of a problem. And we try to create all these solutions. Well, hold it for a second. To your point earlier, is this going to work? But what's the problem that this technology is fixing, is solving? The other part too, with I think about technology is what is this going to replace? Because Mary at the register, when she hears about new technology, a lot of times Mary automatically thinks that she's going to get replaced by this new technology. And 9 times out of 10 she's not. The technology should help Mary become a little bit faster or better at her job. But to the end point is that Mary's still going to be there. We still need Mary. And so we tend to sort of glorify technology and AI and all these other things, and we end up forgetting the people who are actually going to be wielding, the technology that we're so high on and we're so excited about. Yeah.
I think that's a great point. I know there's one thing I don't want to leave without mentioning this, and that is on leaders and leadership from the company standpoint. When you look back when I was a young leader, JCPenney's, Sears, Allied, Macy's, everyone had career programs to build leaders.
Yes.
Career program. You do this, you're going to do this step, this step, this step, this step. Don't offer people jobs. Offer them careers.
Yes.
You're listening to Retail Leadership with Steve Worthy.
And you'll get a different mindset. I was identified after my first store. They said I had high potential. I don't know what that means, but they said I had high potential. But from that time on, HR sort of adopted me.
Yeah.
And they sent me to legal presentations, HR, real estate. And all of a sudden, I was being exposed to all these different things I didn't know I would ever use.
Yeah.
Today, I'm so well-rounded. I'm a generalist. My specialty, probably don't have one, but I have a general knowledge of everything. So they prepared me for every step of my career. And even after I left the corporate world and ran 2 companies in the off-price industry, I would walk into rooms, and it was amazing how they felt about me, the knowledge I had. Now, I didn't realize that at the time, but they so prepared me to take on additional responsibilities in my career. I never looked back. Are we doing that today from a corporate standpoint? Are we offering careers or offering jobs?
Yeah, that's great.
I wanted to get that point out.
No, listen to me. You don't know how much I love the fact that you brought that point up, because that has been something I've been preaching, and our good friend Ron Thurston, of course, has been talking a lot.
Love Ron.
Yeah, and is that it's the career pathing. Like, how do you show people that it's not just about where you are, but it's also about where you can go? And guess what? We're going to actually show you a path in order to get there, and we're going to help you get there. Nowadays, and it's I love that fact that you said that, but nowadays we've gone so far away from that. We don't see a lot of corporations, investing in their teams and their leaders like they used to, right? It's almost like, well, you got the job, you should sort of be happy, and we may give you, some LMS, some AI courses for you to look at, and some things on that. Doesn't do anything for me. That doesn't do anything for that leader. That doesn't help them understand who they are and where it is that they need to go. But being exposed, to your point, being exposed to all these different aspects of sort of the next step, and then what's after that. And then also, like, laterally, HR, legal, labor, all these different things. You don't know how much value that adds to an individual. And we've gotten so far away from that. So I'm so happy that you actually brought that up. I really am.
The other thing is the Myers-Briggs test.
Yes. Yeah.
I use it like crazy, because I took on an assignment where I was working with a family that owned 5 Ace stores. And they asked me to come on, sort of organize them, get the next generation running it day to day. And the first thing I did was I did Myers-Briggs on all of them. And I found out that 5 out of 6 were introverts.
Yeah.
Running a retail company. So we had to go. It was, it was challenging but exciting at the same time.
Yeah.
So they said, well, what does that mean? I said, well, I'll ask you a few questions. If the introverts, when you come in, do you go to the office first? Well, sure I do. And I said to the extroverts, what do you do? Oh, I walk around the sales floor talking to everyone. So I said to each of them, you need to flip-flop for a while until you get comfortable. So it's a great tool. It's a great tool.
Yeah, 100% agree. I love Myers-Briggs, DISC, and then I've recently sort of, recently meaning like the last 5 years, have adopted using the Enneagram, and I use that for coaching clients because it provides a lot more about like the depth of your personality and like the why you do stuff. So it's not just like, your sort of tendency, but it's like, why do you act the way that you do? Right? Because when you know that, you have the ability, or you should be able to sense where, what, I know if I put myself in this situation, I'm going to be pissed off. Right? So you should avoid some of that, right? So it's having a really good understanding about who you are. And so as we go to
are you going to share which one you are? Which one are you, Steve?
I'm a 3. I'm a 3 in the Enneagram, and I'm a 3 all day long. I am a 3 all day long.
So you got a nice wardrobe. You drive a BMW. You're a 3. You love it.
You know what? I'm a healthy 3. So I'm a healthy 3, and that's I used to be a unhealthy 3. So I used to, I used to have all of that. So you're 100% correct. I used to have all of that. So now, as I've gotten older, I've become more of a healthy 3. And so it's so funny that you said that. So good, so good.
I've studied it like crazy. So what am I?
Yeah. What are you?
What am I? Do you think?
I want to say you're
I'm
8 challenger, but you got a 3 sort of mentality though. What are you?
I do, but it's 8 challenger.
Okay, yeah, see,
it's an 8. Drives my wife nuts.
Yeah. Oh,
she says because it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Whatever, doesn't matter what she says. I'm going, I don't know. Maybe not. I'm always looking for that argument, that debate.
Those of you who are in the audience listening to this, I don't know. I highly recommend, and obviously Walter does too. We sort of recommend just going and taking it and understanding a little bit about who you are. And here's the one caveat that I will give for the Enneagram, and I don't know how we got into this, but I remember my oldest daughter. She's 32, and I remember probably about 2 or 3 years ago, she was asking me about taking the Enneagram, and I said, I don't know if you're ready for it, because I think you have to have, in my own personal opinion, there needs to be some life experiences that you've gone through, and because the Enneagram will really tell you about yourself. Like it will pull back a lot of the onions of who you are. And part of that, you have to be sort of, have some strong EQ in order to take some of the stuff that it may say. It is not all encompassing. But I got to tell you, when you read that, it will do something to you. So I think there needs to be some emotional maturity that you want to make sure that you have. And this is just my little disclaimer. Don't come on LinkedIn looking for Walter and I talking about, you guys told me the Enneagram and now my self-esteem is all jacked up. Well, I'm sorry.
It's interesting because my 3 grandsons, 2 are 4 years old, and 1 is 6. And my wife is a master practitioner of Myers-Briggs, but she loves the Enneagram.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of time before she gets that designation. But she says to me about the one grandson, he's aggressive, he's loud, he tells you how he feels. She goes, another 8. I'm for sure it's another 8. It's hilarious.
Oh my gosh. Okay. The last thing that I really want to, because I respect your opinion, and I know there are thousands of other people who look at what you post and your perspective on LinkedIn, and we talked a little bit about that before we came on camera. When you think about 2025, like what's the retail space? What are some of your predictions, or what are some of your thoughts around the industry that we need to get right, or that are going to be some of the things that you see occurring within the industry, and maybe sort of how that relates to sort of retail leaders, and then how they embrace some of the things that you're talking about?
It's a great question. There's 4 things that always come to mind. It's the 4 P's for me. It's people, product, presentation, and process. And don't think it's AI. AI and technology is a process. And we have thousands of processes. It's people, product. Remember, we're still retailers.
Come on.
Product matters. Presentation, I don't care if it's your website or if it's your store. It's got to present your brand and what it represents. And then the process, you'll hear me talk about operational execution. There's so many brands out there that just can't execute because I believe it's the corporate direction, it's the lack of investment at store level, and then they want to criticize the customer that the customer's hurting. Yeah, the customer's hurting because they can't find the product in your store. That's how they're hurting. Stop blaming the customer. Blame yourself. Get your counters filled. Then maybe we can say there's an issue. But blaming the economy is ridiculous. And you got the four big ones right now, too. You got the Costco, Walmart, Amazon and TJX. They got it. And they're running. They understand its price and its value.
Yeah.
You've got the other level. It's probably Target. I wish Target would step up. I see new leadership coming soon. I think Cornell's just about done.
Yeah.
I think you're going to see new leadership. Home Depot, Lowe's, Five Below. They're treading water. Until that real estate comes back. Some of them are hurting. Department stores, it's sad, but they're probably it's a slow death. I don't see anything shaking them up. Specialties all over the ballpark. Abercrombie, I was in an Abercrombie the other day. You couldn't walk.
Yeah.
Then you go next door and there's no one in there. So it's all over the place. Dollar stores, no one shoots themselves in the foot any more than a dollar store. But the potential to me is incredible.
Yeah.
So I think we're in for another year of value and price. GDP is not going to be up 10%. Retail's not going to go nuts. The grocery business is still going to be very, very interested. But Walmart's dominating it like crazy, and they're not giving that up.
Right.
Amazon, I'm a little confused on Amazon and grocery because they can't seem to make up their mind.
Agreed.
I was in a Whole Foods the other day, and I keep telling myself, what is it they don't see here? Great concept. Why can't you just grow it? You keep coming up with all these different things and then closing the store. So I'm a little frustrated with Amazon, but there's nothing new.
Right.
And everyone says with the kind of money they have, they can do all the testing they want.
That's true. What about, so would you lump malls into shopping, into department stores, or what's your thought about malls?
No, we have a living center in this town, in Jacksonville, that was built 10 years ago. So it's an outdoor living center. It has 200 plus stores. And it has all the luxury names you can think of. And it has Target. And it has all the lower end ones too. It has everything. Gucci, anything you can think of, it's there. It's got a Nordstrom's, it's got a Dillard's, it's got a Dick's, it's got an RH. So it has everything. It's so healthy, it's unbelievable. You can't even get near it. It's got restaurants, it's got movie, entertainment. So if you've got that kind of mall, if you're a AA, AAA mall, you're in great shape. Now we have in town, we have another mall that I call a B mall. And they've changed the different brands out, but that mall's busy too. I don't think the mall business is done yet. I think there's still some hope. The C's and D's will go away, but the A's and B's, double A's, I think they're very healthy.
Yeah, I agree. I've been in several malls, and I see, I don't see the typical stores like we used to. There's more experiential stores and opportunities inside of malls that are actually taking up more space than the traditional clothing, technology, shoe stores, right? It's more experiential. So if I come in and maybe I do want to go to Dick's Sporting Goods, but guess what? After that, I want to go to a batting range, a batting cage that's actually inside of the mall, that's actually taking up, this corner space that was, it used to be a Macy's or it used to be a Belk or something like that. Now they're actually utilizing the space differently. So I agree. I think retailers are very, there's going to be some ingenuity that needs to take place, but I think that they're going to figure out that this is some space, and it's whether it's cheap or not. But how do we actually, take advantage of some of the space that's actually available in some of these stores? So 100% agree with you. 100% agree with you.
The one last thing is nothing's going to change in retail if your brand isn't exciting, entertaining, emotional, and compelling through merchandise. You probably got a problem. You got to stay focused on the ball. It's still a merchandise business.
It is. All right, I can't get you out of here without you gave your prediction and your perspective, I already sort of know what the answer is going to be when I ask you this question, but I don't care. These leaders nowadays in 2025 and beyond, right? Give them some advice, because they're probably tired of hearing from me. They're not really tired of hearing from me, because I got a whole bunch more that I got to give them. But I give them some advice to help them, be as successful as they possibly can be.
Look in the mirror. Be very, very critical of yourself every day. Self-pity gets you nowhere. It gets you nowhere. When you go out the door, you want to be known for your enthusiasm. It'll be contagious, and they'll run to keep up with you. Never, ever forget, hard work pays off. I don't care who you are. Tom Brady did a fantastic speech at the New England Hall of Fame. Not at the big football. He gave a fantastic speech. Everyone thinks of him, gorgeous looking guy, looks gorgeous at 45. And he just told the story of being a young man, not being the best football player,
right?
Playing on the high school team, not being the starter, going to college, not being the starter, going into the NFL, not being the starter, and that the only thing he says that saved him was hard work. He knew no different.
Yeah.
He grinded, the grit, the mental toughness. It doesn't come overnight. Success does not come overnight. You're not going to graduate from school, college, and walk out and get six figures. It's not happening. Go work for it.
Go work for it. Go work for it. Oh, Walter, this could have, I think beforehand when we talked, I said, okay, you know what? I love long podcasts, but we can't go 2 hours like our first conversation. So I got to temper my time. And I think the audience got a whole bunch of value out of this. What's the best place that people can connect with you and learn more, and also possibly work with you, but then also, to get more of your content and ideas that you put out there in the marketplace?
Yeah, use LinkedIn. It's such a fabulous product. Use it. Yeah. I use it for business. I just love it. Reach out to me, connect with me, start the conversation, and let it go from there.
Excellent.
I got more work than I can keep up with now, but I mean, I love if I can be of some help to anyone. I love that.
Excellent. Well, I just want to thank you so much. I've always appreciated, our conversations and even our back and forth, whether it's on LinkedIn and everything, and just to be able to have you here on the podcast finally, to get your perspective and hear your voice. I want more people to hear what you have to say. And so I just want to say thank you so much for being here and being a part of this podcast episode for us.
Very kind. Thank you so much, Dave. It's my pleasure, I can assure you. My pleasure.
Excellent. All right.